Thank you so much. Well, the mayor is here, and I don't want to delay him any longer. So, Mayor Sam Liccardo, please come on up. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I was actually happy to listen to whatever Ann had to say because I know she knows a lot more than I do. I just wanted to say, first, thank you all. As I look out in the audience, I see a lot of familiar faces of people who've been working very, very hard on trying to achieve what we've all been pushing for so long. And we know that GreenTRIP is really critical to making this happen. I want to particularly point out one person in the room, Maria Fernandez. Maria, thank you very much. As we all know, what we're all working to do is to make Nuria incredibly successful, because as we drive more customers to VTA, we are all going to be better off as a city. And so this is such an essential tool to make that happen. And certainly we know this and the Connect tool, which I understand will be launched in a few months, are going to be very critical for us in really being able to retrofit this city that's been built for automobiles into a city that's built for people. And as I look around the room and I see colleagues like Councilmember Oliverio, Councilmember Colora, and Councilmember Camus, we are certainly deeply concerned about the affordable housing crisis we have in the city. We're deeply concerned about climate change on this planet, and the role we can play in that. But as elected officials, one thing you're most immediately concerned about is whether or not, by approving a project with a lot of density, they're going to burn down City Hall. And so the idea is to get the density built in the right places and still keep City Hall intact, right? And that's what tools like this can help us do, because we know we need the density, we know we need smart growth, and we need to be able to do it with everybody on board. And I'm really looking forward, not just to Transform's leadership on this effort, but also on the Connect tool, because we know that community engagement is such an incredibly important piece of all this. So thank you to the Knight Foundation. Thanks to all the people in this room who are working so hard to make this happen. It's hard work, but it's absolutely worth it. Thank you and have a great day.
Please, I hope you stick around to hear what we have to say. And I just wanted to invite, I asked the restaurant to open up. There's a little space to lean. If you're in the back, come on up. There's space for you guys to get in a little closer. There's a little area right here. So, with that, thank you so much to all of you for coming, for putting on these funny little badges with colors. To me, it just represents the diversity of all the various expertise in the room. All of you play such a critical role to making sure that it is truly possible for us to transform our communities, making communities for people rather than cars. Because for an entire generation, we've been building our cities assuming that everybody's going to drive everywhere most of the time. And so it's a little surprise that our communities are clogged with traffic, pollution, and simply people are fed up. So we have an incredible opportunity right now with tremendous state legislation turning almost a full 180 towards supporting walkable communities and smart growth instead of sprawl. And so combined with people's desires to get up, move around, live healthy, active lives that are engaged with everyone in their community, we're just so interested in knowing, we set out to create a tool that will allow us to transform how we build our communities and at the same time build community support. But this is not going to be easy. So this is recent news from Palo Alto. Sadly, residents have rejected an affordable senior housing project in downtown. They are not the only communities out there, and this trend is only on the rise as traffic increases and concerns about who gets to live where increase. So we set out to solve the equation. So what can we do better? One huge opportunity is in just how much parking we build. We just don't need this much parking. We recently released with Jennifer West, great work, GreenTRIP parking database, and in 68 buildings, we found that 30% of those parking spaces were not used. And thanks to many developers in the room who helped contribute and added their projects to our database, that in all costs $140 million of parking. And that's $140 million that we all think could be better spent on housing people rather than cars. And let alone the 20 acres of land and space that is used for phantom cars instead could be put towards parks, to restaurants, to amenities that actually improve the surrounding community. So with that, GreenTRIP was created in order to look at this sweet spot of how can we leverage parking prevention and allocate those resources to smarter strategies like transit passes, car sharing, and instead making lives easier for people as well as developers, saving them time and money. So with that, raise your hand if you've heard of GreenTRIP. Great, so many people. So this will be, you guys will be all experts at this, and I'll get to focus on platinum, but the three main categories for those who haven't heard of GreenTRIP. GreenTRIP is our traffic reduction and innovative parking program. And what we do is have three main criteria which we use to evaluate developments. First being maximum parking per unit per day. Maximum parking per unit. We also have a minimum number of traffic reduction strategies, which is the GreenTRIP standard, being free transit passes, free car share memberships, and 100% unbundled parking, where the cost of parking is separate from rent or ownership. And that's for 40 years. We also have a maximum daily driving per household, which we use using our complex models. And so with those three main categories, depending on where you are, where your project is, the thresholds will depend, and more aggressive in urban areas and more essentially sliding scale for more suburban areas. So developers come to us, we work with them when they want to apply for certification, and we basically run the evaluation, and when they are certified, we provide a custom traffic report explaining how this specific project will have less traffic than your typical project. Condensing it in a simple one-page handout, and you can see here, this is what we then take to council hearings, and in this case is in San Jose council chambers, presenting to the Planning Commission on Barry Swenson's Vendo Phase 2 that I got to work with Josh Burns on. And so we're super proud of our first 18 projects certified since 2010, our first project being in the city of San Jose. Raise your hand if you're a GreenTRIP certified developer, please. Raise them high, raise them high. We need to give a round of applause. Thank you so much. Thanks to these pioneering developers, we have these incredible impacts from these just 18 projects so far. 3,800 free transit passes, 1,900 free car share memberships, and 1,200 unbundled parking spaces. And then we look at the measure and benefit to visionary transit agencies like ETA providing EcoPass. This is $20 million over 40 years of guaranteed transit pass revenue. And then when you look at the benefit to households, 3,800 households who get free transit passes, $70 million. Does anybody want to live in any of these GreenTRIP places? I think I would. So with that, moving on to why we're here. So Garden Village, back in 2013, was a project that came to us. Nautilus Group, who's here today, came to us with this troubled project, vociferous opposition in downtown Berkeley. The project was pretty cool, has a great urban roof and a farm, but it had, because it was just set outside of the downtown development code area, had to provide a $23 million parking garage, which threatened the financial viability of the project, and especially if they were going to include and keep the affordable units. So we worked with them and experimented and brought out a whole laundry list of all these different strategies, and to our great surprise, Nautilus went above and beyond, more than we ever dreamed that was possible. So you can see a bunch of awesome strategies here. The one we're most excited about here is that they were willing to provide and buy 4 cars, equip them with get-around technology, which is essentially a peer-to-peer car sharing platform. And so all the residents of that building, whoever lives there, are going to get their own access to free car or free membership to those cars whenever they need them. And so with that, we melted away the parking garage, as well as the opposition. And from there, the project essentially got unanimous approval by the zoning board, of which we also have a representative here. Raise her hand, where's our zoning board member? It was before her time, but thank you. And so with that, project went forward, was approved, and we were so excited because they, instead of spending $22 million on a parking garage, they spent 1.67 on the best traffic reduction strategies we've ever seen. And from there, they resulted in our first Zero GreenTRIP project, as well as inspired our GreenTRIP Platinum strategies. You can see here a page from their website how the developers have used the GreenTRIP certification as part of their marketing and differentiation of their product. So with that, GreenTRIP strategy. So we have this great handout book. Hold that up. The how-to guide has the full list of all the strategies, everything that we've added to our new slew of traffic reduction strategies. I won't go into all of them today, but Jennifer and Jean, our GreenTRIP team, I'll introduce them shortly, will be here to explain more. But just a sampling of what we're super excited about include transit screen, smart walk, so real-time transit information. We're super excited about giving developers an option of adding electric assist bikes to cargo bikes. But the most excited that I am about all this is that we get to bring bike share formally into our program. So if bike share is here today, raise your hand. I think I saw some folks. But what they will offer now is you can, instead of paying $50,000 to a parking space, you can now have the option of buying into a bike share pod, which includes a docking station and 9 bikes for $20,000. So that's the current quote, it might change. But at this point, that's well under half the cost of 1 parking space. So in addition to that, there's a whole slew of strategies. Won't take too much longer, but we are now open for applications. With our limited capacity, we can only take 10 projects for 2015. So with that, we want to take the best projects willing to go the furthest. So we have 2 months. We'll have application forms online going live very soon. The top 2 San Jose Platinum projects are going to get a free certification, thanks to the Knight Foundation. And the top 2 Bay Area projects will get a 50% discount off of Platinum certification. So with that, I want to have Jean Long, GreenTRIP Planner, and Jennifer West, GreenTRIP Policy Analyst, just step up really quick and wave. So you guys turn around. Just want to thank these awesome ladies. Critical element of our success today, and we'll be around to answer all kinds of questions. If you have projects, we want to hear about them, now's the time. So I also wanted to call out a couple of transportation innovation partners. We have Zipcar in the room, I believe. So developers, if you want to talk to Zipcar, we've got PTA, lots of folks at PTA, so please stick around, get to know each other, and with that, I'm going to hand it on to Stuart, who's going to give you an awesome sneak preview to where GreenTRIP is headed.
All right, thank you, Andy. While he's changing that, let me just give you, I think, some of the frustration that we have had with GreenTRIP, with all of it's this love-hate relationship, because we love it because we're getting some great results. And we hate it because it takes a lot of time to go through this, each development. We do a lot of data analysis, we run our Venus model, and we also have kind of a sense of urgency because we know that the issues that we're facing, whether it's the climate crisis, the housing affordability issue, are getting so much worse. So for the last couple of years, we've been pondering with our advisory committee, how can we take this to scale? We've considered things like LEAD does, where you train the trainers and you're able to quickly have more people. The problem being this is very context sensitive. And so we finally started working with the Center for Neighborhood Technology. Cheng, raise your hand, here from CNT, an incredible group based in Chicago that has done a lot with data and mapping, like HUD's Housing and Transportation Affordability Index. And we had the idea with them that if we could take this process and put it online in the form of a web tool and make it available free, all of this information and data collection that we have, make it available instantly and free so that anybody, whether it's a developer, city staff, or community members who really are shut out of a lot of information can instantly access it, we could be able to take GreenTRIP strategies to scale at a much quicker pace and really unleash it, not just in the Bay Area, but be able to quickly replicate it just with a little data collection in other regions. So I'm going to take you on a quick tour of this proposed tool. The way it would work is you'd be a Google Map interface, you'd select a parcel, you can aggregate parcels, and this is the kind of the community interface of it. You'd say, okay, let's see if we put 100 units on there, and let's do podium parking. If you're a developer, you'd actually go under the hood and put the exact mix of bedroom counts. And it would instantly show you a business as usual account. So this is 2.2 is the standard ITE parking per unit. The 50 miles of driving per day is actually the Bay Area average per household. And then it would just instantly calculate the cost of parking. And then you'd be able to see car sharing and bike sharing, which actually have a lower cost to add and get you some pretty big results. And then one of the big strategies that gets you a very big impact, of course, is unbundling parking from the rent. Still getting people used to it down here, but it's starting to happen in more places. And unbundling doesn't cost you anything, and it gets you to help prove that you can reduce your parking even further. And you would know instantly that if you did these things, not only would you save $500,000 on top of the smart growth location, even after paying for those strategies, but you'd be able to get GreenTRIP certified. So the reason this is so important is when developers work with us, they often need a variance to get that very low parking amount. And this way you would know up front what you were getting into. And we really want to work with cities, and we're so happy to have a large number of city council members here and so many of the department heads, because what we want cities to do is reference this in their code and say, our code on things like parking was adopted 9 years ago, and this is more up to date and more predictive, and so referencing in this code, you would not need a variance if it came through the GreenTRIP Connect tool. And we have a number of cities that are interested in doing that. But here's one of the other great things. Affordable housing, which of course communities often come out against, is a low traffic strategy. It's a greenhouse gas reduction strategy when you're transit, but often we don't know how to frame it that way. Just in this building, if you added 20% more affordability, you'd be able to see that, again, the amount of parking goes down. We just did a statewide study with CNT and another housing partner that showed what a benefit it is. Now, if you went to 100% affordability, these numbers would really come down. But on average, depending on the level of affordability, they basically are owning about half as many vehicles and driving about half as far. But again, this model would have a lot of nuance. So you'd have to put in the levels of affordability to get that detail. But it's a very important part of it, and we want to thank Enterprise Community Partners, who's here today, who has helped fund some of our research on that. So how exactly will this be used? Well, first of all, we hope that instead of developers coming to us during their approvals process and entitlements, which is often when they come to us, they're having community resistance or the parking garage is too expensive, so they won't come to us. They think about it when they're doing kind of looking at site development from the beginning. And they'd be able to, on their iPads, look at what would it be like here if I was able to reduce my parking. We also, of course, would like community members to use it. Now, I cracked up, this slide was presented to me a couple of days ago as kind of a classic neighborhood association. And I cracked up because I swore it was the neighborhood association in my area. I don't know if they're all the same, but it looked just like a lot of the folks where I go. But anyway, right now, if you're a neighborhood association, you don't have tools at your disposal to improve developments. You know, it's often, we don't like it, so how can we fight it, is the immediate frame. We would like this tool to instead allow these folks to say, hey, let's get out that GreenTRIP tool and let's see how we can reduce these traffic impacts. And what they would get isn't just that calculator, but they get these kind of reports. So if it turns out they like the building or they like what they come out with, they can work with the city, work with the developer to actually reduce the amount of traffic, reduce the impacts, all in a way that ends up having benefits for the residents that move in there and for the developer. And so they'd be able to get reports like this, as well as sticker reports. So the developer, for example, would be able to print out a one-pager on each of these traffic strategies and the empirical evidence that underlies it. So we'd have this whole bevy of DIY reports that would kind of automatically print out specific to that building. And so finally, what are the kind of outcomes that we really would hope to see from this? Well, it's a lot of the same ones we're seeing from GreenTRIP, except at a much bigger scale. So hopefully, we'd see a lot more of these yeses, like we saw with Garden Village. I tried to get one no back there, because it's unrealistic you get all yeses, right? But I don't know, we were having problems kind of putting it in. But even so, we'd like the yeses to outnumber them. We'd like to see development happening quicker. We know how arduous it is. We work with a lot of developers right now. And we'd like to see that once people move in here, we're not clogging our streets, that we're actually providing bike share pods, so not only are they driving less, but their neighbors now have options to drive less. We'd like the car share to be available to the neighborhood as well. We'd like new development to become mobility hubs for the neighborhood. And we think they should be. We actually think it should be almost a responsibility that developers are providing these amenities. And if we want to be able to develop for the long term, we're going to have to go in that direction. And then finally, for Nuria, we made sure that we want families to have transit passes. This is at First Community Housing's development on North First Street. This family is saving about $3,200 per year because all 5 of them get transit passes by First Community Housing. And they told us, you know, if we had to do the economics on this, if we didn't have these, we'd probably just buy a beater car. But the transit is free, and for some people that might mean they don't buy their second car. For some people, like Lopez's, it might mean they don't buy their first car. And so we're very excited about the potential for Connect. We've been working on some of the foundational work with CNT, so it's actually a little bit along. And now, with a matching grant challenge from the Knight Foundation, we are getting really close to having enough funding to call CNT and say, we're signing a contract.
We view opportunities like investing in GreenTRIP and really sort of looking at the kind of innovation that's coming from this region and that's coming on the campuses of places like Microsoft and Cisco and Adobe and all the places that are around here, and trying to figure out how do we take that incredible innovation and bring it to our cities. And so we're really excited about this because we really see this being an innovative way to reimagine and rethink and challenge the way that people are going to stay here now and moving forward. So I am very happy to be here again and happy to see all of you. And with that, I'm supposed to encourage you to mingle if you haven't already. So go meet somebody you don't know. I'll be around. I look forward to talking to all of you.
Yeah, and if board members can raise their hands, we have some Transform board members here. Many are planners and city council members and others, and and Transform staff we can see. So thank you all for coming, and there's going to be food until 1:30 and drinks, and look forward to talking to you. Thanks.